Here we are. Thank you for joining me on this week's episode. Historically, the shit words that do not serve is the place that people love talking about. And in order for us to understand the shit words, we got to take a step back and understand the power of language. So I start off my book talking about meeting your brain. And we're going to be talking about that today, meeting your brain and giving a no shit quick tip today how you can rephrase in real time. And when you rephrase, it leads to more optimism. And there's all this studies and research out there about optimistic people, how they heal better, they feel better, they have better lives because they choose to be optimistic. And it's a choice driven by thought. I learned this through the mass resiliency training in the Army. It's an activated event, your thought about the event, and that leads to your emotions and reactions. And when I was doing some work with Dr. Bill Crawford, we changed up that model. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, the power your thought has over your emotions and or reactions. So let me actually present some of the material I have here so that we're reading from the same sheet of music. So what Dr. Bill Crawford says, and this is my favorite thing he said, I heard him present maybe a year ago at a Vistage meeting. Yeah, it was last year, September. And he said this, and it resonated with me. There are only three things you have to do. You have to be born, you have to die, and in between, you have to live. Everything else is a choice. I heard him say those words, and it spoke to me. It spoke to me because of the word have to versus get to. It spoke to me because people often will say, oh, they made me do this. I have to do that. You made me feel this way. And that is garbage. It's garbage victim language. And it does not drive optimism. It drives pessimism. It drives thoughts about what is uncontrollable versus what is controllable. Let's talk about the science. Dr. Bill's the one that talks about the brain. And here it is. This is your brain. And I took the example, the brain, along with his theory of your upper, middle, and lower brain. And here's the research. It's real simple. Your lower lizard brain that's what regulates your heart rate, your adrenaline, your chemicals in your body, your breathing, all that stuff, right? Your middle brain is the brain that takes in information and determines, is this a threat or not a threat? If it's a threat, it sends that information right down to your lower lizard brain and you react to things. And that's where your adrenaline kicks in. And people often say, I don't know what overcame me, or your adrenaline kicked in, or your heart rate went up and you said or did something that wasn't consistent with your values or your beliefs. And what's happening is your fight, flight, or freeze receptors are kicking off. You are making a decision based off of fear. This is something that kept us alive when we were animals, back when we were hunter-gatherers. This was the instinctive thing that kept us alive. And now here in 2023 and beyond, it no longer serves us at all times. Now, what you want to do is use your upper brain, your clear, confident, creative brain. And the goal is to slow down your response time from the activated event to ultimately your response. And the way you do that is by taking the information in, having predetermined outcomes. And these are your values, your beliefs, the things below the surface of the iceberg. These are the values and beliefs ingrained in you. These are new thoughts that you've implemented into your brain so that you can better respond to situations. So the choice is simple. When there is a stimulus, you have two choices. You can go the clear, confident, creative brain by using your big brain. It's physically larger. It has more computing process and power. It is where you are your best self. Or you can operate out of fight, flight, or freeze. This is a choice. And the choice you can make is all based on the words you tell yourself going into a situation, the words you tell yourself after a situation occurred and how it went down. So when we think about these three words, this is what it looks like in real life. Do you want to operate out of abundance or scarcity? There's some great business books out there talking about an abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset. Do you want to operate out of love or hate? We often see this in movies or in religion, right? Operate with love. It's love for what's behind you, not hate for what's in front of you. We talk about often in the military. And then do you want to operate out of assurance that the situation is going to work out, or insecurity that it's not going to work out? And these are words that we use often in our society, and it's absolutely a choice based on how and what words we put into our brain when we're thinking about situations in the past, the present, and the future. So now I've taken these two theories, the theory from the Army about the activated event, combined it with Dr. Bill's research, and this is essentially what we come up with. Activating events. Things happen near you. Thoughts come into your brain. There are things you need to do in life. Those are the truth. That is the activated event. Think about something recently that happened near you. And then think about your ultimate action. Was it consistent with your values and beliefs? Was it consistent with what you want out of this world, or was it inconsistent? Chances are, if it was inconsistent, your fear-based receptors were kicking off. You were operating out of scarcity. You were operating out of hate. You were operating out of insecurity. And you fought it. You froze, or you flew away from the situation. You reacted. Ultimately, you reacted to the action that was near you, versus making a clear, creative, courageous, confident, all these C words response, ultimately a conscious decision. Something happened near you and you consciously thought about it, slowed it down in your head, and then responded in a manner that was consistent with your values and your beliefs, was consistent with the person that you want to become. I often think about things that I do in my life, and I look back and say, is this the person I want to become? I love the saying, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. I look back at some of the decisions I made, even just yesterday. Was I the person that I want to be? Was I the person that I aspire to be? Was I the person that I would look up to someday? And if not, what did I do? And what was the thought governing the thing that I did? When you start thinking about this, you change your language. And this is what it looks like in the past, in the present, and in the future. When we think about the past, I keep using the word near you. Something happened near you. It's your choice. Was it an obligation that had happened to you? Victim mindset. It happened to you. Or a victor mindset, an opportunity happened for you. The other day when I was doing the workshop, I had examples. And I said, okay, anybody, what's something that happened negative in nature that happened to you recently? And a woman said, I got fired from my job. Okay. You got fired from your job. And I said, okay, are you a victim? And she goes, yeah, I was fired. I said, okay, what's the opportunity in that? It happened to you. The fact is you're no longer of the employee with that company. So it happened near you. Absolutely. It had an effect on your life and your family and your finances. Absolutely. Not going to discredit or just take away from that. It happened near you. I said, what did you get out of that? She goes, actually, I updated my resume and found a job I like a lot more. I said, okay. So that was an opportunity, right? It happened for you. She goes, you're right. It did happen for me. And I could speak to that exact scenario on a personal level. I got laid off from my father's company 2 days before Christmas in 2008. For those of us in the working world in 2008, it was a tough time, end of 2008, going into 2009. The facts are simple. I was 24. I was uneducated. I did not have an impressive resume. I looked like a job hopper. I was unemployed for basically 1 year after deployment to Iraq. I was not exactly the best candidate on paper, and I worked for my father's company, and I wasn't a great carpenter. And my father had to stay in business, and keep me employed over the winter was not in the best interest of the business. Those are the facts. I wore it like a badge of honor for years that I got laid off and fired from my father's company. It's the only job I've ever lost in my life. And instead, now I can look back and say, okay, that happened for me. That was an opportunity for me to pull up my boots and get to work. There was an opportunity for me to start scrapping and drive around a van on the northwest side of Milwaukee, which is now led and turned into a recycling company and a junk removal company, because it happened for me. It gave me the time, the bandwidth to then pursue my passions in this world. Let's talk about the present. There are things that you need to do. It's a choice. Do you have to do it, or do you get to do it? And again, I asked the audience, hey, what is your feedback? What's something you need to do? I said, what's something you don't like doing? And another woman chimed up. She goes, I need to pay my bills. I said, okay, let's be specific. What's a bill you have to pay that you have to do? She goes, I have to pay my electricity bill. And it's going to be even more now because we're home earlier in the day because it's winter and the lights are on longer because the sun's down sooner. She gave me the whole dissertation. I said, okay, so you have to pay your bills. I said, no, you don't. Stop paying your bill. She goes, then they'll cut off my electricity. I go, okay. So you get to have electricity. She goes, yeah. Okay, so you get to pay your bill. She goes, yeah. I said, because there's a lot of people in this world that would love the opportunity to get to pay for their electricity. They would love the opportunity to have the money, to have a stable home, to have readily accessible electricity at all times. There are countries all over this world where their power grids get shut off throughout the day because they're conserving. There are people that do not have the money. There are people that do not have a home or the infrastructure to have electricity. So that sounds like a pretty good thing you get to do every month. And I relate it back to a story I heard years ago. It was an immigrant. It was a gentleman, Vietnamese. He came over to the United States during the Vietnam conflict, and he rose up and built a very successful business. And he said, I love paying taxes. Now, me personally, I don't love paying taxes. I look at taxes as a necessary evil to live on this great land. I don't look forward to it. I'll be honest. I'm in the have to bucket like this woman was. Her name's Lisa. And yet, this is what changed my mind all these years ago. He said, I get to pay taxes. I get to pay taxes because I made a profit. I made a profit because I ran a successful business. I ran a successful business because this country took me in when nobody else would. And now I get to pay taxes so that this country can afford opportunities to other immigrants to come into this country. And so I get to pay my taxes every year. And he said it's his favorite day of the entire year because it's the most American thing he does. That is a paradigm shift. That man will be optimistic. That man will be more successful than the person sitting next to him because he is considering how much opportunity he has day in and day out. He can go to work every day saying, you know what, I'm excited to make money, to pay my taxes because my purpose is much greater than my pain. And so therefore he chases that opportunity so he can get to pay taxes. And finally, this third piece, this piece is about the future. There's a study done in Harvard in 2001 Business Journal that came out, and it took different people and it had them do an impromptu 3-minute speech. And the difference between the two is they had some that had positive affirmations saying they were going to be successful in the speech, and others had negative affirmations. And the people that had positive affirmations before doing a 3-minute presentation scored significantly better as far as overall happiness and nervousness, if you will. And yet that versus the other people. What they found out through this study and other studies is the pathways in your brain between anxious and excited are the exact same. It is the exact same pathways, the exact same chemical compositions, the exact same neurons, all this shit that way beyond my pay grade. The difference is, do you anticipate a positive outcome or a negative outcome? When you anticipate a negative outcome, you are anxious and you start thinking about all the things that can go wrong. And yet, when you implement a positive outcome, you anticipate things going great. Then you get excitement. It's the same thing. Think about it. When you're going through life, heart rate is a bit elevated. Your breathing becomes faster because your adrenaline is kicking in. You're getting the butterflies in your stomach because of the brain gut health. Again, way above my pay grade. When you implement the difference between your optimistic mindset versus pessimistic, you become optimistically enlined. You become excited versus negative. And now it's an obligation. And you take nervousness and turn it into anxiety. These are choices. The choices are clear and simple. Do you want to go through life with creative, confident, clear decision-making and responding to situations? Or do you want to go through life reacting out of fight, flight, or freeze because of a fear-based mindset? The choice is yours. The word you use day in and day out, the 7,000 spoken words, the 70,000 thoughts in your head, rooted in your language, will ultimately govern your life. I encourage you to choose optimism and always do the fucking thing.